Silence. Not the kind you choose. The kind that's forced on you when the world has stopped screaming and all that's left is wind. Endless, howling wind. A hand reaches through the snow. Fingers blue. Skin splitting from the cold. The body attached to it hasn't moved in hours. Minus 43 degrees Celsius. At this temperature, your breath freezes before it leaves your mouth. Your tears turn to ice on your cheeks. And if you fall asleep, you don't wake up. But 72 days ago, when Flight 4291 went down in the most unforgiving place on Earth, 14 people crawled out of the wreckage alive. This is the story of how they fought Antarctica, and how Antarctica fought back. December 14th, summer in Antarctica. Which means it's only deadly, not instantly fatal. The charter flight was supposed to be routine. A small research team, a few contractors, and a couple of last-minute passengers hitching a ride to McMurdo Station. 23 people total. Some laughing. Some nervous. Most just tired, staring out windows at an ocean that looked like hammered steel. Among them was Dr. Sarah Venturi, a glaciologist returning for her 4th Antarctic season. She'd made this flight a dozen times. She knew the risks. But knowledge doesn't make you invincible. Sitting 3 rows behind her was Marcus Chen, a mechanical engineer on his first trip south. 28 years old. Engaged. Wedding planned for March. He'd spent the whole flight texting his fiancée, Claire, even though the messages wouldn't send until they landed. He just liked seeing her name on his screen. And in the back, pressed against the window, was Dmitry Volkov, a Russian logistics coordinator who'd survived 2 Antarctic winters already. He didn't talk much. Didn't need to. His eyes said everything. Been here before, seen worse, we'll be fine. The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. Routine. Professional. Expected arrival in 40 minutes. Light turbulence ahead. Nothing unusual. But in the cockpit, the instruments were telling a different story. The first warning came as a shudder. Not turbulence. Something deeper. Mechanical. Wrong. Sarah looked up from her notes. Marcus stopped typing. Dimitri's hand went instinctively to his seatbelt. Then the alarms. High-pitched. Urgent. The kind that turns your stomach to ice. The plane lurched left. Hard. Coffee cups flew. Laptops slammed into the ceiling. Someone screamed. Then everyone was screaming. Brace. 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 The pilot's voice. No longer calm. No longer routine. Engine failure. Both engines. Over the Antarctic plateau. 300 miles from the nearest station. No glide path. No options. The descent felt eternal and instant at the same time. The world outside the windows became a white blur. Snow. Ice. Nothing else. Just white rushing up to meet them. Marcus grabbed his phone. Typed 4 words, "I love you, Claire." He never hit send. Impact. Metal screaming. Glass shattering. Bodies thrown against seatbelts like rag dolls. The sound of the fuselage tearing apart echoed through the cabin like the earth itself was breaking. Then, silence. The terrible, complete silence that comes after violence. Sarah opened her eyes. Blood in her mouth. Ringing in her ears. She was alive. That thought came first. Shock. Disbelief. Alive. Then the cold hit. Not like stepping into a freezer. Like being swallowed by one. The fuselage had split open. Antarctic air, brutal and absolute, poured into the cabin like liquid nitrogen. Around her, movement. Moaning. Sobbing. Marcus was conscious, trying to unbuckle with shaking hands. Dmitri was already standing, checking bodies, his face grim. 14 survivors. 9 dead on impact or in the moments after. They had no radio. No beacon. And night was coming in 3 hours. The cold doesn't ask permission. It takes. Within minutes of the crash, the survivors could feel their extremities going numb. Fingers. Toes. Noses. The cold works from the outside in, shutting down their body piece by piece. Sarah, despite a broken rib and a gash above her eye, took charge. Her Antarctic experience made her the de facto leader. She knew the rules: stay with the wreckage. It's your only shelter. Your only landmark. Your only hope for rescue. They pulled the dead outside. It felt wrong. Horrific. But keeping bodies in the cabin would make the psychological burden unbearable. Marcus threw up in the snow. Not from the sight. From the guilt of being alive. Using seat cushions, luggage, and the plane's emergency supplies, they blocked the torn sections of fuselage. Every gap was a death sentence. Wind chill could drop the temperature to -70. At that point, exposed skin freezes in under 2 minutes. The emergency supplies were limited. 3 thermal blankets. 2 flashlights. A first aid kit already half depleted treating the injured. And food. Enough freeze-dried rations for 23 people for 3 days. 14 survivors. Optimistically, maybe a week of food if they rationed severely. That first night, huddled together in the broken cabin, nobody spoke about rescue. They were too busy trying not to freeze. They pressed against each other, sharing body heat, breathing into their hands, willing the sun to rise. 3 people didn't make it to morning. Hypothermia is a thief. It steals warmth, then thought, then life. On day 2, they burned the plane seats for heat. The smoke was toxic, but the cold was more toxic. You choose your poison in Antarctica. Marcus, the engineer, rigged a crude ventilation system to reduce carbon monoxide buildup. It wasn't safe. Nothing was safe. But it was better than freezing. They rationed food religiously. 1 small meal per day. Melted snow for water, though drinking it lowered their core temperature dangerously. They had to warm it first, which required fuel they didn't have. On day 4, someone asked the question everyone was thinking: why hasn't anyone come for us? Sarah explained. The storm that brought them down was still raging. Search and rescue couldn't fly in this. Maybe days. Maybe weeks. The plane's emergency beacon had been in the cockpit. The cockpit was gone, torn away on impact, buried somewhere in the snow. They were invisible. On day 7, tempers flared. Hunger does that. So does fear. 2 men fought over a candy bar found in someone's bag. Dmitri separated them. Quietly. Firmly. We die together or live together. Choose. They chose to live. By day 10, the initial injuries had either stabilized or killed. 2 more lost to internal bleeding and infection. The cold doesn't heal wounds. It preserves them, yes. But it also makes the body too weak to fight. 12 left. Starvation is slow violence. By day 11, the food was gone. Completely. They'd stretched it as far as possible, but Antarctica doesn't negotiate. The conversations changed. Desperation has a sound. It's quiet. It's careful. It circles around the unspeakable. On day 14, Dmitri spoke what everyone had been thinking. We won't survive without protein. Without calories. We need to make a choice." Sarah knew what he meant. They all did. The bodies outside. Frozen. Preserved. The moral weight of it crushed them. Marcus cried. Others prayed. Some argued it was wrong, monstrous, unthinkable. But starvation is also unthinkable. On day 16, they made the decision. Not unanimously. But survival rarely is. They took only what they needed. Small amounts. Ration like everything else. Nobody spoke during it. Nobody made eye contact. It was survival, yes. But it cost them something that could never be replaced. Their humanity felt negotiable now. By day 20, the psychological toll was visible. People talked to themselves. Stared at nothing. Rocked back and forth. The mind, when faced with impossible circumstances, begins to fracture. Sarah tried to keep them together. Daily check-ins. Shared stories. Memories of home. Anything to remind them they were still human. But Antarctica is patient. It waits. It watches. It knows you'll break eventually. On day 27, a young woman named Lena walked out into the storm. No coat. No warning. Just walked. They found her an hour later. Frozen solid. Kneeling in the snow like she was praying. 11 left. Isolation is its own kind of death. By day 31, they'd stopped counting time in days. It became sleeps. How many sleeps since the crash? How many sleeps until rescue? The word rescue started feeling like a fairy tale. Marcus stopped talking. Just sat in the corner, staring at his phone. The battery had died weeks ago, but he held it anyway. His last connection to Claire. To a world that felt like it belonged to someone else now. Sarah's leadership began to crack. Not from weakness. From exhaustion. She'd carried them this far, but even she couldn't carry hope anymore. On day 38, she admitted it out loud, "I don't think anyone's coming." Dmitri disagreed. Not with words. With action. He started making modifications to the wreckage. Using reflective materials from the plane to create signals. Patterns in the snow. Anything that might catch a pilot's eye. "If we give up," he said, "we insult everyone who already died here." On day 42, the storms worsened. The plane shifted. Part of the remaining fuselage collapsed. They lost 2 more in the chaos. Crushed. Instant. 9 left. The hallucinations started around day 47. People saw rescue helicopters. Heard voices. One man swore he saw his daughter standing in the snow, calling his name. Sarah tried to ground them. Reality checks. Physical tasks. But reality, in Antarctica, is fluid. On day 53, Marcus finally spoke. "I want to walk. Find help. I can't stay here anymore." It was suicide. They all knew it. The nearest station was over 200 miles. In this cold, without proper gear, he'd last maybe 6 hours. But Sarah understood. Sometimes dying while moving feels better than dying while waiting. She didn't stop him. She just said, "Wait one more day. Please." He waited. On day 56, the weather cleared. Not much. Not warm. But clearer than it had been in weeks. Dmitri saw it as a sign. Sarah saw it as a window. They made a plan. A desperate, impossible plan. 3 of them, Sarah, Dmitri, and Marcus, would trek toward higher ground 5 miles away. From there, they could see farther. Maybe spot something. A plane. A station. Anything. The other 6 would stay with the wreckage. Too weak. Too injured. They'd keep the fire burning. Keep hoping. On day 61, the 3 left at first light. The trek was hell. Each step felt like walking through concrete. The cold sapped their strength. Marcus collapsed twice. Dmitri carried him. On day 63, they reached the ridge. And saw nothing. Just more white. Endless. Eternal. Mocking. Marcus broke. Completely. Screamed into the void until his voice gave out. Then he just sat in the snow. "I can't go back," he said. "I can't tell them there's nothing." Sarah knelt beside him. Put her forehead against his. "Then we lie. We tell them we saw something. Hope? We give them hope." On day 67, they returned to the wreckage. 5 people left. 1 had died while they were gone. But when Sarah lied, told them she'd seen lights in the distance, a station maybe, just beyond the ridge, something changed. Not belief. Something stronger. Defiance. The sound came at dawn. A hum. Distant. Mechanical. At first, they thought it was another hallucination. But the sound grew. Closer. Real. A plane. Dmitri scrambled outside, waving the reflective materials. Sarah pulled herself up, screaming despite her shredded voice. Marcus just stared at the sky, tears freezing on his face. The plane circled once. Twice. Then it dropped a marker. Red. Bright. Impossible to miss. Rescue was coming. 12 hours later, a team arrived. Helicopters. Medics. Warmth. 5 survivors. Out of 23. Sarah. Marcus. Dmitri. And 2 others who barely remembered their own names. Marcus never sent that text to Claire. When he finally saw her again, 3 weeks later in a hospital in New Zealand, he couldn't speak. Just held her. She asked what happened. He said, "I learned what I'm capable of. And I wish I hadn't." Sarah never returned to Antarctica. She lectures now. Talks about survival. But she doesn't talk about day 16. Nobody does. Dmitri went back. 2 years later. Same job. Same risks. When asked why, he said, "Because I survived." And that means something. 72 days in Antarctica didn't just test them. It changed the architecture of who they were. Some things, once broken, don't heal the same way. But they survived. And in the coldest, most hostile place on Earth, that counts for everything. Because survival isn't about the temperature outside. It's about the fire you refuse to let die inside.